Don't you even dare think about saying this video is not relevant anymore. To probably no one's surprise, Inside Out 2 is now Pixar's highest grossing film of all time, with a general consensus seeming to be that the movie is good, with some even saying it's better than the original. What a sad reality we live in. I don't know if I'm alone here or not in saying this, but as someone who liked the original and was actually looking forward to this movie for some time, this movie was a massive disappointment for me, and at least in my opinion, this was far worse than the first one. My biggest problem with the movie just comes down to the plot. The first movie, right out of the bat, gives a really strong setup for the main idea, with Riley having to move away to a new place. It was a perfect, relatable plot to showcase these emotions. They all get to shine at some point. It left people thinking, wow, there's so much potential here. As long as they don't spend the entire sequel on one idea the entire time, it can't go wrong.
But what the hell, boy?
Pretty much the entire movie focuses on one idea. Riley's going to a hockey camp with her friends and trying out for a hockey team she really wants to join. But oh no, there's a new emotion in town, anxiety. And she's giving Riley a new anxiety-dominated sense to try to impress Val Ortiz, the superstar hockey player. Ooh.
Whoa! Are you okay?
Also, remember when that plot point first came out and it made some people speculate that Riley might be gay? Yeah, those were fun times. One of the biggest things I think is important to note for in a movie is the difference between making your character care about something and making the audience care about something. This is shown perfectly in the two movies. The first movie's plot about moving away to a new place is very relatable. Like, even if it hasn't happened to you, you're probably aware of it and able to relate to what it would be like. And therefore, you totally understand why Riley's emotions will be completely out of whack and spiraling. But here, it's just not the same. We're shown that we need to care about this hockey plotline, but the movie never actually gives us a reason to. Or at least not nearly as much as Riley seems to. So it honestly just comes off as Riley being a bit overdramatic, which I know might sound weird considering that's sort of the whole point of the movie, but I don't know, it just really wasn't done well. Not to mention that this movie somehow feels way less airtight. Like what? You're telling me that when all the original emotions get sent out of headquarters, Riley's not feeling happy, sad, angry, scared, disgusted at any point? And what? Now emotions have the ability to go and freaking change morals, beliefs, and values? It just feels so complicated for no reason. Again, some people may like that, but for me, the original was able to toe a line where it felt clever, but remained simple enough for you to never really question it too much. I mean, let's be clear here. The original was far from perfect. One of the biggest criticisms of that movie, which I agreed to an extent, was that Riley didn't really feel like a real person. More just a vessel for the emotions to control, a control panel, if you will. This is a problem that they do try to alleviate a bit here, but now I feel like it's almost too much in the other direction. And now the emotions feel like they don't have enough control. And now I just want to go back to how it was in the first movie. Or maybe I'm just impossible to please. Nah, it's definitely the movie's fault. And of course we have the emotions themselves. And honestly, there's not really a lot to say about the new ones. Besides anxiety, they are beyond forgettable. They pretty much exist just to throw in an occasional joke or be anxiety's a henchman. They add absolutely nothing and you'll probably completely forget about them 5 seconds after watching the movie. And anxiety's fine, I guess. I like the way she's introduced as being more powerful than the other emotions. But you honestly just stop caring after a bit as she's pushed in your face way too hard. But honestly, my biggest problem is how they handled all the original ones. I've thought about all the original emotions getting sent away, having to get back together, sounds cool until you realize that fear, disgust, and especially anger are basically just used as comic relief. They add pretty much nothing to the plot outside of an occasional lame joke or comment.
Your team, Riley! Playing in his 13th year and fresh from the penalty box, it's Riley's anger! You let me at him!
But the main thing I hear about the movie is the ending. But I think it's dreadfully overrated. The ending to the first movie honestly still impressed me to this day. The whole movie, Joy is so convinced that there's no use for sadness, and them to realize that there is a use for her. And it's shown extremely well, with Riley basically shutting down completely, needing sadness to make her realize what she's actually doing. And it's actually a great, well-told message that, as much as it may not feel like it sometimes, there truly is a use for sadness. This movie's message is that you'll feel anxiety sometimes, but don't let it take over. Wow, thanks movie. I needed to know that. I've seen people rave and cry over this movie's ending. The end to this movie just felt so slapped on and rushed. I think they expected the panic attack scene with anxiety to have more of an impact, but it really just didn't do it for me. And yes, of course, like I'm sure pretty much all of you, of course I've felt anxiety sometimes, especially in recent years. But this ending just feels like a middle school film project. There's no depth. If you were satisfied with this ending or thought it was deep, I think you're selling your expectations a little short. They could have done so much more. The last thing I'll mention is the music. I think the Michael Giacchino score was honestly a bit of an overlooked part about the first movie. Of course, it was nowhere near amazing or anything, but the main theme ended up becoming a big part to that movie's success. And the accompanying soundtrack to the Riley runs away scene in particular was really solid. It really helped to further drive the emotion of some of that movie. But in this movie, it's just pathetic. They reused the main theme at the start, and then from there, nothing even worth wasting your breath mentioning. But overall, this movie was just a big disappointment. It's worth mentioning that the movie switched directors, going from Pete Docter to Kelsey Mann. And honestly, I do have a feeling that this could play a role in this movie's seemingly much poorer directing compared to the first. As seen by his resume, Pete Docter established himself as a quality director with a real knack at being able to drive emotion into films. But here, he's only a producer. I don't think this movie's terrible or anything, but it is far from Pixar standard. And as I have heard many people mention before, the massive success of this movie, combined with the success of Despicable Me 4 this year, does not bode well for the creation of new ideas as opposed to slop sequels in the movie industry. Because as long as people keep watching them, they're not going anywhere. I've seen a lot of positivity around Inside Out 2, but in my opinion, this movie still reeks that modern Disney stench. It's just not quality enough to compare to anything that Pixar used to make. And it sadly still does nothing to alleviate Pixar's continuing massive form slump into mediocrity.